it's grey and drizzly at the moment, I still think that's a wonderful view. So where am I? Well, I'm in the beautiful Exmoor, and I'm starting my tour in the lovely town of Linton. Linton is set amongst the spectacular scenery of an area known as England's Little Switzerland, where Exmoor meets the sea. It is the twin of Lynmouth, the former near the top of Holiday Hill, and the latter at its base by the mouth of the East and West Lynn rivers. The two are linked by a steep road, even steeper paths, and a cliff railway built in 1890. Both became fashionable resorts in the 19th century, when a combination of outstanding scenery and a mild climate made them popular with affluent Victorian visitors. The Lynn and Exmoor Museum is housed in St Vincent's Cottage. It has some interesting exhibitions of Exmoor life, including information about the local lifeboat and the Linton and Barnstaple Railway, of which Linton was once the terminus. Linton has a good range of restaurants, cafes, tea shops and art and craft shops. There are many hotels and guest houses in Linton, and I was staying here for 2 nights in an excellent B&B called Longmead House. Linton is a predominantly Victorian town, as many of its buildings were constructed in the latter part of the 19th century and early 20th century. The town hall, opened in August 1900, was given to the town by Sir George Newnes, a major benefactor of the town. He also gave the town the Congregational Church on Lee Road. Linton has a small cinema, seating 68 people. The current cinema opened in 2001 and is housed in the former Methodist chapel. This is the parish church of St Mary, which stands overlooking the sea. The tower is mainly 13th century, but the church itself has been enlarged and altered, most notably in 1741, when the nave was rebuilt, and later in Victorian times. Well, I don't wish to tempt fate by saying so, but it looks like it might be drying out and brightening up a little bit. So, I'm going to try and do a walk now. From St Mary's Church, I walked down North Walk Hill, following the public footpath sign to Valley of Rocks. I continued along a pleasant tree-lined drive, which later became a tarmac path. After emerging from the trees, the path ran high above the sea, with views across to the South Wales coast. There was still some drizzle in the air, so I was unable to see the views clearly, but the rain was becoming less persistent, and despite this, I was thoroughly enjoying this spectacular walk along the coast path. At a path junction, I continued ahead along this attractive winding coastal path, the route signposted Coast Path Castle Rock. Well, the weather may not be at its best today, but it certainly ain't spoiling my walk on this wonderful coast path. My view was dominated by the impressive Castle Rock immediately ahead. Here the path turned slightly inland as I arrived in the dramatic valley of rocks. This rocky valley, running parallel to the coast, has some interesting and spectacular rock formations, created by the action of the weather on a mixture of hard and soft rocks. This strange valley is full of legend and superstition. The rock formation called Rugged Jack is named after the leader of a group of revellers, said to have been turned to stone by the devil. Chimney Rock is where wreckers used to set lights to lure ships onto the rocks in the 18th century. It is a popular tourist destination. The valley is believed to owe its existence to the dissection by coastal cliff recession of the former extension of the valley of the East Lynn River, which now meets the sea at Lynmouth. Well, I'm now going to walk back to Linton through the Valley of Rocks. The Valley of Rocks is well known for its herd of wild goats, which have lived in the valley on and off for some 6,000 years, and I saw plenty of them today as I passed through. I continue to follow the footpath uphill running parallel to the road. After a while the path dropped downhill again as I walked back into Linton. Well, it's a lot clearer now than it was this morning when I looked over this view, so you can see how beautiful it really is. Well, now it's time for me to drop down into Lynmouth. After centuries as a remote and relatively unknown North Devon fishing village, Lynmouth was discovered in the early 19th century. Its picturesque appearance and exceptionally attractive situation at the mouth of the Little East Lynn and West Lynn rivers, sheltered by high cliffs on both sides, made it a favourite resort for aristocratic and intellectual visitors, followed by middle-class Victorian holidaymakers, with its popularity increasing further in the 20th century. It is easily reached from the nearby resorts of Minehead and Ilfracombe, despite the hazards of Porlock and Countisbury Hills. The most dramatic and tragic event in Lynmouth's history was the flood disaster of August 1952, when, following exceptionally heavy rain on Exmoor, the swollen waters of the East Lynn and West Lynn surged through their narrow valleys, uprooting trees, destroying buildings and transporting boulders to inflict severe damage on Lynmouth, with a loss of over 30 lives. A memorial hall dedicated to the disaster is on the front toward the harbour. It contains photographs, newspaper reports and a scale model of the village, showing how it looked before the flood. A further photo and information display is found in St John the Baptist Parish Church. Several long-distance footpaths pass through Lynmouth, including the South West Coast Path, Tarker Trail, the Two Moors Way, the Samaritan's Way Southwest and the Coleridge Way. The village of Hollow Bay in The Secret of Crickley Hall by James Herbert is based on Lynmouth. Devil's Cleeve is based on the East Lynn Valley and Watersmeet. The book brings together two stories, that of child evacuees during the Second World War and that of Lynmouth's flood disaster. Glen Lynn Gorge is the site of the Power of Water exhibition, a visitor attraction where people can learn about renewable energy in a stunning natural setting. The harbour is a tidal haven, and the entire channel dries out at low tide. The Rhenish Tower, at the end of the quay, was built in the late 1850s by General Rawdon to store salt water to supply his house with sea baths. The tower was badly damaged during the flood disaster, but was later faithfully reconstructed. Marking the end of the Coleridge Way and indicating the closing stage of the Two Moors Way is a statue known as the Walker. Designed and constructed by local craftsman Richard Graham, it also pinpoints where both these walks intersect with the South West Coast Path. It was unveiled earlier this year by BBC Countryfile's John Craven. I then came to one of the most exciting points of interest today, the Lynton and Lynmouth Cliff Railway. This historic Victorian funicular railway opened in 1890 and has connected the twin towns of Linton and Lynmouth ever since. The 862 feet of track rises 500 feet with an impressive gradient of 57%, providing stunning views across Lynmouth Bay. The railway is a fully working listed heritage monument and is the steepest fully water-powered railway in the world. With no need for electricity, gas or diesel, the Linton and Lynmouth Cliff Railway remains the UK's only fully water-powered railway and one of only 3 examples left in the world. I absolutely love Lynmouth. I always have done. It's such a beautiful place, and I always remember when I was living in North Somerset and came to Exmoor to explore, I always made a point of coming to Lynmouth because it's so beautiful. It's been really nice coming here today.